McGlynn.
Is that Herms?
He got them guests on the Rolodex, stopping by to talk about some Dynasty Superflex. Everybody, yo, commish is in. It's time to sit down to listen to John McGlynn. Yo, who we trading, who we fading, who we getting off the squad. Knowledge never overrated, playing for number one. And yo, McGlynn is in. It's time to let the fun begin. It's the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with John McGlynn.
Welcome aboard, everyone. Welcome to the Commissioner Evaluation Show. I'm John McGlynn. You can find me at X at John McGlynn 75 on X. Fantasy football is over. The NFL regular season is over. But for many of us lunatics, the fantasy football season, the offseason is our favorite part of the season. NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, free agency, the combine, NFL draft, rookie camps, mini camps, preseason games. Then we're right back at it. But let's just stick to what's warm in the stove right now. We're going to run through some commissioner questions, NFL playoff predictions, team-by-team free agency, and quick hits for each team. And then we'll review some trades that went down in the Mighty McGlynn home leagues, which is kind of depressing for this week because there was none. So that's it. But clocks, I got socks underwear for Christmas, which is when you get older, those are the best presents in the world. I got nice, awesome, short black socks. Multicolored underwear, that's the best thing of underneath the tree now. And the shaver, the shaving cream and shit like that too. Spent New Year's Eve with some family and friends. I bought my daughter a car this week. Well, she saved $2,000 and I matched her $2,000 for a down payment. I co-signed for a 2021 Ford Escape with only 5,000 miles on it for $20,000, which I thought was a steal. It was like a demo car. It was awesome. I did my first rookie mock draft. I snuck JT in it with me. But what else new with you, JT?
Oh, it's been wild lately. Just so much stuff going on. Colts, playoff games. I went to New Year's Eve in Indy. Was watching beat the Raiders. Was just at the game last week. Heartbreak when the loss to the Texans, but I did get to go see my Missouri Tigers beat Ohio State down in Texas at the Cotton Bowl. So that was pretty awesome. So I've been kind of all over the place the last couple of weeks. Haven't got on a lot of podcasts just because I've been gone. So yeah, pumped to be back on the show.
It's nice to have all these things going on in life. I'm going to Hamilton tomorrow with my daughters. That was my one daughter's Christmas present, buying 4 tickets to Hamilton for me, my 2 daughters, and my wife. So I can't wait to go see that. I know every word to the whole musical now because my daughters walk around singing it for the last 5 years. So this is a great present for them. So there's no singing along in the theater, thank God. So I don't got to hear that kind of shit. But I like it. It's a good show. I've seen it a couple hundred times at this point in time already. So I'm looking forward to that. Nice day out. Go out to eat after, something like that. Spend a day with the kids and the wife and call it a day. Mr. Lane, tell us about yourself, where people can find you on all the platforms, what you do in the fantasy football world that makes people want to follow you, and all the good stuff that comes with yourself.
I am Brandon Lane. Most people know me as the Chubbs Burger or Chubbs, but I'm at Chubbs Burger on Twitter and IG. I'm the host of Winning the Wire. During the in-season, we produce a waiver wire show every week during the season with my co-host, Drew DeLuca. We bring on guests before we talk waivers of each show. We had Dalton Del Don, John Daigle, Jeff Erickson, Scott Engel, and many, many more this season. We just wrapped up our 3rd season. So it's been a lot of fun interacting with all the people on there. So, yeah, that's pretty much my concentration during the season.
I love it. I'm a big fan of the show. So I like all your guests you have on. I like the way you the things you talk about. It's a great show. So if anybody hasn't seen it yet, look into it. Tell me about a day away from the desk, content creation, family, pets, music, hobbies, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my background, I'm in publishing. I've been in publishing for about 25 years. I'm a graphic designer, art director by trade. So I just have a big background in the publishing world. So getting away from that, though, I don't know. I also work as a bartender now here in New Orleans. I moved to New Orleans full-time after splitting time between Chicago and New Orleans. So I'm working at a brewery, so that's been fun, learning more about beer, getting to meet more people in the city of New Orleans. It's Mardi Gras right now. We just started the first weekend of Mardi Gras. 12th night was this past weekend. So parades are starting to parade and lots of partying. just kind of a continuing on from New Year's Eve here. The weather's a little bit hit or miss. We got a lot of tornado warnings last night. So this is a cold season for us, not like Chicago, but it's just kind of unpredictable.
Yeah, we got about 2 inches of snow last night, so it's coming down. There's some fat ass flakes coming down as we speak right now out my window. So
yeah, I've got snow too with me. Brandon, what brewery you work at? I own JT Walker's Brewery in Mahomet, Illinois, just 2 hours south of Chicago. What brewery are you working at down there in New Orleans?
Second Line Brewing. So it's just
very nice.
A little bit outside of the French Quarter, a couple miles next to City Park. So they're one of the best breweries in the city. We've got about 18 beers on tap at all time. They do a lot of different styles. So it's been a lot of fun. I hadn't bartended for a long time since I was probably in about 15, probably 20 years. I haven't been behind a bar, but I just started back after the pandemic to kind of make some extra cash.
Extra cash. I've been to New Orleans probably about 4 or 5 times already. I went with my family last time. And a quick story. We went to this place and they had these, I don't know if it's hurricanes or whatever they are, big slushy drinks, and it came with alcohol in there. I'm like, I don't really taste it here. I'm like, I walked to the bartender. I'm like, can you spice this up for me a little bit? Just put some more Jameson or something in there. And she takes my drink, and I don't know if she was like on something or whatever was going on. And she took that little glass and filled it up with the Jameson, did it again, and then just kept pouring it in her while she was talking to me. And it had to be like 9 shots of Jameson she poured in this glass. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, I just asked for like a top off, not a whole bottle of Jameson in there. And I'm like, how much is it? She goes, $3. And I'm like, $3? I'm like, what? I'm like, here's $3 and a $2 tip. Here's your $5. Thanks a lot, man. I walked out of there and I was completely, I was snookered. I was like, whoa, I'm feeling good. We don't have to eat. I'm yelling Thundercats in a restaurant with my kids. I had such a good time in New Orleans. Everybody says how it's piss or blah, 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 whatever. Every time I've been there, I've had a great time. So it's got to be a great place to work with all that festivities going on.
Yeah, that's one reason I chose not to work like on Bourbon Street or things like that. So I'm a little bit offside. It's more of a local brewery, but we definitely get people from all walks of life. But I've learned early on to kind of maybe wander off Bourbon Street. There's a lot more to the city than just that, but you can definitely find a lot of trouble going on anywhere you are in the city.
Have you had turtle soup yet?
I don't eat turtle soup.
You don't? Why not? It's pretty good, actually.
I'm actually vegetarian, so.
Oh, no.
I know. Someone named Chavez doesn't eat the burgers, but.
It's all right. I'll eat. But the turtle soup is actually pretty good. Every time we go somewhere, I've been to 43 states. And every time we go somewhere, we try a different, different whatever. And somebody said turtle soup. I'm like, man, it sounds gross, but I got to try it. It was real good, man.
Yeah, they serve it at most of the top restaurants in the city. It's one of the delicacies of the fine dining here. So,
all right. Let's get some commissioner questions here. So we're all in that time of year. Fantasy football is over with. We're all itching right now to set lineups. Like some of us are in fantasy hockey or fantasy basketball, or getting ready for a fantasy baseball draft or whatever you may do. But what's the best time to start a new dynasty startup league? Like, would it be like now do an NFL side draft and then do like a rookie draft later? You wait till after free agency? Do you wait till after the NFL draft? You wait all the way to the end of the season, like, September, when all the rest of the redraft leagues are going on, so you can implement the rookies and stuff. But what is Brandon, we'll start with you. If you're going to join a new league, what's your favorite time to start a new startup?
I don't think it's a bad idea, like in the next couple of weeks, to start recruiting people for that. But the actual draft, I'd probably hold off till after the rookie draft and do it all at once. And then obviously years to come, you're just doing those rookie drafts. But I think it's kind of fun to do them all at once right after the NFL draft.
JT, when you draft, usually like somewhere between now and before the NFL draft, a lot of times you'll just draft rookie spots instead of actually rookie players. So you'll draft pick 101 in round 2, pick 7 or something like that, or rookie pick 103 in round 4, pick 8. What's your favorite time to do a draft when you don't know who the rookies are, where they fell, so it's all a chance, or you just like wait until the end, everything's already set and done, and having a real solidified lineup?
I like to do the rookie drafts after the actual real NFL draft. I've had a couple leagues that do them in advance, and oh man, it's wild where some guys will go depending on, where the hype's at on a QB, where he's going to get drafted in leagues. I saw some leagues, where Malik Willis was going like 1-2 1 year before the draft actually happened. So I'm one of those guys. I'm like, I really, if it's a pretty serious league and there's money, pretty good money involved, I want to wait till at least I see what team of guys on before I do that draft. So I'm definitely wait till after the rookie draft. I know last year we were laughing about it because like I went to the draft last year and literally we had a draft the next day starting up, and then I drafted every day until basically the season started. I was in a draft, so it was a pretty wild summer last year for doing that. But I don't know how people do it early. That drives me crazy, not knowing where a guy's going to go. It just changes his value so much.
I'm in 3 rookie mock drafts right now as we speak, and it's kind of like, all right, it's pretty cool. There's a lot of people. For me right now, I do the rookie drafts because I want to see what everybody else is thinking, who they like, what's going on. So now I get a list of 60 players from 3 different leagues, and I'm like, okay, cool. Let's watch film on this guy. Let's see what this guy wrote up about so-and-so. Let's see, why does this guy like him? And everybody writes up a little bit about why they drafted this guy. And, I drafted Michael Penix with the 112 in my first pick. And last night he did not look good at all. His feet were all over the place. He couldn't really make any completions. And, people blamed it on the pocket collapsing and stuff. But, he just looked – he looked really good last week against Texas. I mean, it was like, holy shit. But it was like a tale of two cities, man. This guy, even when he had time in the pocket, it seemed like when he threw the ball, he was hopping in the air with his feet like off the ground like an inch. When he threw every pass, it was like, dude, set your feet, man. Even on these little throws, like you got the same motion, stay consistent. But man,
yeah, I think sometimes you start getting that rush, and he was just getting there in his face all night. I think he just kind of fell back and he was running in that like he just wasn't getting set. And you could tell he was in a little bit of pain. He was taking some hits, and he was just trying to get rid of the ball early. But I'm all about mock drafts. I love to do mock drafts before because I want to see where I kind of value a guy based off before he gets taken on a team. Because I've had times where I liked a guy a lot. People didn't like his landing spot. And then I turn around and look at the draft and I'm like, oh, I forgot about that guy because I didn't love the landing spot either. And then you can get some great value on some players that you liked pre-draft, but maybe people didn't love where they went. Running backs, especially, I like to look where some of those guys I really like them. And then maybe they don't go till the 5th or 6th round, and people kind of forget about them. But I like to do those pre-mocks just so that you kind of have a good feeling of how you feel about a player just before the landing spot is determined.
The back-to-back Brainiacs champ, Brian Farrell, almost went undefeated this year, but he lost one game. But he said Penix looked like your boy Tua last night. First of all, Tua is not my boy. And second of all, it's funny because it seemed like as soon as Michigan was up by a touchdown or two, Penix was like a whole different player. And Tua is the same way. When the Dolphins are winning, man, it is pile on. Everybody's slapping hands. The whole team's going nuts. Good times. But it seems like some guys, they can't handle the pressure of being down, having to be, the anchor of the offense. Or, but when things are going good, things are going good. When things are going bad, they're going bad. And it's Tua and Penix, I guess, to put them on a parallel like that, Brian, was a pretty good comparison. So how long should it take to pay out your league winners when you win? Like when you're in the leagues you pay in, I literally, and then like, sometimes we wait for stat corrections, but if you're up by, if the winner won by 70 points, there's no reason to wait to see if, whoever, Josh Allen had an extra half yard because he took a sack or something, that kind of shit. Like, how long does it, in the leagues you play in, Brandon, we'll ask you first, like, when is it usually, generally speaking, how long does it take you to get paid? Do you like league save and stuff like that, or mostly home league kind of shit, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a long-term home league that's been around for like 32 years, and that one, they kind of do it as they get to it, and I'm not too worried about it. But I did win that one. It's kind of it had been a 20-team mirror league, so it was like 2 10-team leagues that you kind of combine them into each other and then play head-on-head against the first ones. But for the first year, they pared it down to a 12-team league this year. So I actually won for the first time. I've made it to the finals a couple times, but I've not been in that league for 32 years, by the way. But
I was about to ask, 32 years and you won your first championship, man.
Yeah. Well, the commissioner has been in there for 32 years and has yet to win, so it is possible.
Whoa.
He's got the commissioner first. Anyway, most things like, these bigger networks like ESPN, Yahoo's, those kind of things, I think they pay out. They take a little bit of time, maybe a week or two. I mean, it seems like 2 or 3 weeks before they pay out. I see no reason not to pay out within a week, though, if you can do that, if you're in charge of it.
Yeah, JT, on some of your home leagues, I've been in leagues before back in the day where the commissioner didn't really care about collecting dues. Like, yeah, I'll get to it. Next thing you know, you forget about it. The league season's over with, and still 5 people haven't paid yet. And now it's like, hey, man, it's Christmas just happened. Nobody's got any money. And they're like, oh, I'll get back to you in 2 weeks or so. And next thing you know, the season's starting next year. You're at the draft, and 3 people still haven't paid yet. And it's like, dude, this league blows. Like, come on, man. That's
the bummer, man. I've definitely paid out my fair share where I've had to cover people that didn't pay in, but I was the commission. I wanted people to get their money, so I paid them anyway. So yeah, I always tell people like, yeah, it's if you can make sure you get somebody on the money is huge, because I've been terrible about that in certain leagues, especially usually if it's my home league where guys live in town, I can run them down pretty easily. But I have a couple home leagues where a bunch of guys have moved and no one lives anywhere near each other, and it's just a nightmare for me to run down money from people every year. It's a fight. So it's a brutal. I have one league that's a big money league, and so instead of me holding the money all year, we basically play a year behind, and then I pay everybody at the next draft. So everybody pays in their dues of whatever they lost from the year before. Everybody that wins gets their money, because the total pot's about $5,000. So I instead of me just holding on to everybody's money all season, we just kind of do it at the draft. But again, if you have live drafts, it makes it, the more and more everyone goes to goes to online drafts from live drafts, makes it a lot more difficult to collect that money. That's for sure.
Yeah, our in-person home league live drafts which is pretty much almost all I play in, but they're you get paid up before the rookie draft. You have to be paid up, which is sometimes in May, mid-May, early June, something like that. So by that time, everybody, and I have a financial secretary in all my leagues too, so I ain't got to worry about shit. I just say, hey, Vince will be on there, or Brian, or whoever, or Tim, or whatever. Bob, like, hey, the money's due now. You're not allowed to draft and rookie draft until you're paid up. So that's kind of one of the incentives to pay on time. So
I definitely need a secretary for my leagues. I'm terrible about it. I'm terrible about making sure everybody pays. Everybody's like, "Oh, I'll get you. I'll stop by the bar and I'll get you later." And then they never do, and then I end up eating the money half the time. So I definitely need to get on that. That's a good idea.
It's a nice idea to have. All right. News and rumors. So real fast, we'll just do some coaching things first. Bill Belichick might be relieved of his GM task, which will possibly allow him to remain the Patriots head coach. Good idea or bad idea? JT.
I was wondering if they might go the other way and let him just be the GM and stop coaching. I don't know. It feels like Kraft pushing him out to me just doesn't feel like a very Robert Kraft thing to do with how long they've been together. I've been talking about all year whether they kind of get together and say, hey, this is the guy we're going to hire to replace you. Let's give you a year with him, learn the system. You get to do a farewell tour. That kind of feels more like what the Patriots would do. But in this day and age of the NFL, what have you done for me lately? Maybe they just say, hey, it's time and this is it. But it seems crazy that they would just push him out, even though they had they've not been very good the last couple of years without Tom Brady.
I feel like he's a much better coach than he is a general manager. So I think this may be a good.
Their drafts have been. If you go back and look at their drafts the last couple of years, you can see why they haven't been very good. Their drafts have been pretty terrible, and they've missed on a lot of guys.
Yeah, they go for more like system guys than actual players sometimes, and it's like, dude, why would you take him? Why would you take this guy when you know that this is a better player because he might fit your system better or your defensive scheme better, but it just doesn't translate into what a player should be doing on the field. So I don't know.
What was the Sean McVay video where they told him who got picked and he started laughing with somebody and they're like, the Patriots took a guy in the first or second round. They're like, he was like a fourth rounder on our list. And then they're like, so I just think sometimes I think Bill's outsmarted himself a few times on these where he thinks he's jumping ahead and stealing a guy from everybody. And he probably could have just waited.
100%. Absolutely. So Jim Harbaugh leaving for the NFL, is he staying at Michigan or is he going to the NFL? What do you think about that, Brandon?
I think he stays at Michigan personally. I don't know. I think, some of these coaches have tried to jump back into the NFL and then they just flop. I think he's got a good system there. So I don't think he leaves.
I don't know why anybody would want to be a coach in college anymore with this transfer portal thing going on, man. Like, you go out of your way to woo these kids to come to Michigan or come to Wisconsin or come to Florida State or whatever the deal may be. And then they're there for a year because they didn't get enough playing time. They just leave. And it's like, I spent countless hours at your kitchen table with your mom and dad and everybody else and recruiting you, and you just walk away. And, I understand they get guys from other teams also, but it seems like it's just a terrible place to be. I mean, it's the same as free agency in the NFL, I guess, but it seems like it's an even worse situation in college. So I don't know why. I don't envy anybody that's a college coach right now. You see those guys just pulling their hair out on a daily basis because they're losing quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers and key defensive players every year, even coaches. And good for him if he wants to stay in college. But I think if I was him, I'd take a shot at the pros again with a pretty decent team that just needs a good coach.
Yeah, there's a lot of openings.
JT, one of my favorite people in the world, Pete Carroll, is coming back to the Seattle Seahawks here. What do you think about that?
I never thought that he wouldn't be back. I just assumed Pete was gonna stay until he can't physically run on the sidelines anymore. So I figured Pete was coming back. The Seahawks, you could say whether you thought they were a disappointment or not a disappointment. They were about exactly what I thought they would be this year, and I think most people thought they would be. So I don't think it was a knock on him. I just think right now they're just a very okay team talent-wise. They just don't have a ton of talent. So I don't think it had anything to do with Pete Carroll. So, and I think he's just won enough. He's won enough in Seattle for them to give him some leeway compared to some other coaches.
He's still in better shape than me, and he's like 78 years old. It's like
I was looking at it, I was like, man, I need to start getting on that Pete Carroll workout plan or whatever he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got abs. I haven't had abs since like 8th grade, so whatever. Mike Vrabel has been fired by the Titans. Did that surprise you, Brandon?
I think he's a good coach. I mean, it wasn't maybe a little bit of a surprise, but they weren't going anywhere. I think he gets an immediate offer from these other teams, though. I do like him as a coach, but
I do too.
I think Vrabel's a good coach. Yeah, I just think it was one of those situations. At some point, if you haven't won in a long enough time, I think people just think you need something new. We've got to start fresh. But man, he's done some really good things with that team when that team looked really terrible. So I would assume there's going to be a lot of people jumping on to try to hire him. If he doesn't get a head coaching job, at least the coordinator job.
It's a shame that he's not there to kind of see the Will Levis kind of like progression. Because I think Will Levis, not that he's a great quarterback, and I know you don't like him, JT, but I think giving him a chance and having some healthy receivers for a year or two and, building this offense, but they're going to lose Derrick Henry probably. I hope he doesn't go anywhere, but Derrick Henry's probably gone. And, just I guess sometimes you just have to make moves if you're just not happy. And, just sometimes us as fans get attached to these teams and these coaches and get comfortable with them. But, when you're the guys selling the tickets and you're not filling the stadiums or nobody's watching the games or you're not doing what your target. I mean, everybody wants to win the Super Bowl every year, but only one team wins the Super Bowl every year. You got to understand that there's going to things are going to be happening, some injuries, guys just not performing the way you thought. It's Mike Vrabel. I feel like he's going to find a good job somewhere and be a very successful coach for a long time. So, all right, so let's go to the NFL quick hits. All 32 teams, real quick, like 10, 15 seconds per answer if possible. Brandon, you're a little familiar with the Bears. So I'm going to give you the Bears question first. Do the Bears draft Caleb Williams with the 101 or push all the chips in on Justin Fields for one more year and just build around them and see what they got?
This one's a tough question because I could see it going either way, but I do think they keep the 101 and get Caleb Williams. And then possibly, I think they trade away Justin Fields possibly to a team like the Falcons, which could be a win-win for him. No more Arthur Smith, Drake London, Bijan, Kyle Pitts are all there. So I think that could be a win-win scenario. But I could see it going either way. They could maybe move down a few spots, grab Marvin Harrison, and stick with Fields. But I do think they keep the 101.
I wonder if, like, because of the fact they said they're going to keep Eberflus, that means they're going to keep Justin Fields also. That's kind of what the hint I got out of it is that they're like, hey, we're going to run it back with the same team. We're going to, trade out of the 101, go to 103, maybe grab Joe Alt or something like that. And then go after one of the other receivers, possibly that's almost on the same tier as Marvin Harrison Jr. So, who knows, man? Who knows what they're going to do, but it's a tricky question. It's 50-50 answers, keep them or send them out. That means it's probably time to move on if there people are that indecisive, but it is what it is.
A spicy topic for sure, though. I mean, there's a lot of people out there chirping about each direction. So,
yeah. All right. JT, Bengals. You keep T. Higgins or bring in a rookie?
I think it depends on how much T. Higgins costs. I just think he's going to end up costing more than the Bengals want to spend. I like T. Higgins a lot. I think he's good on that team, but he's had a lot of injuries the last couple of years. It just seems like he's always kind of nicked up. It's like he's never out forever, but it's always like a hammy, something here and there. If they could get him for a reasonable price, I'd do it, but I just have a feeling we're going to see one of these like Christian Kirk contracts where one of these teams come out of nowhere and just give them huge money, and the Bengals say, it's too rich for us, and they let him go.
And the Bengals had Yosevich. They got Charlie Jones. They got, like Tyler Boyd might come, will probably be back if he's sign him for cheap. We'll see what happens there. But, they have options. They have pretty good underrated receivers, and they have a good backup quarterback. So I think the team would be okay by losing, a player.
Deep wide receiver draft, too. Deep wide receiver draft. So I think a lot of teams are going to look at that and kind of decide, hey, do we want to pay a big money for a guy, or do we want to take our chances with the rookies?
Yeah. Brandon, Bills. Gabe Davis gone, Khalil Shakir unproven, Stephon Diggs is a bit crazy. They can't just build around two tight ends. Do they go hard in free agency or hard wide receiver in free agency to draft, or they try and keep Gabe Davis around, or what do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, I don't think that they keep Davis. I don't think they're going to re-sign him. I do think it's likely in the draft they probably go with their defensive needs early on, and then maybe get a wide receiver a little bit later in the draft. They've got $43 million in cap space, so I don't think they're going to be able to get a top tier guy, but I could see them maybe pulling in someone like Marquise Brown or someone like that to stack with Diggs and maybe see if that could work.
I was kind of singing the praise of Troy Franklin the other day, saying that he'd be a great fit for the Bills, incoming rookie, super fast guy, would take, either the Bills or the Chiefs, like either one of those teams, and they need like a speedster that can actually catch the ball downfield. So, I know that the Bills have Shakir, but he's kind of been unproven, but a player like that to open up to pull the safeties deep, open up the middle of the field for either of these teams that are pretty much tight and heavy, it would be a pretty nice fit for both of those teams. So,
yeah, I mean, they could go real cheap and go like DJ Chark or Josh Reynolds or someone like that, but that's not really boosting their team up a whole lot, but it could be a direction they could go.
They got to get someone with some hands, yes, that can actually catch the ball, yeah. Broncos, JT, new quarterback, new wide receivers. Is Marvin Mims going to pan out this year or what?
This Broncos situation is going to be really interesting to see what they do in the offseason. Just all of a sudden out on Russell Wilson after he actually looked pretty good most of the year. I'm a little surprised they just bailed on him. I can't believe Marvin Mims didn't get more playing time. That actually has me nervous that the coaches don't like him, as opposed to just the production was down because he just couldn't find quite a good role. But I don't know. It's like they just all of a sudden forgot about him and quit using him. What are they going to do with Jerry Jeudy? What are they doing with all these other guys? I thought their defense was going to be way better than it was. It finally got better near the end of the year, but it was terrible to start. This Broncos situation, it could be all over the place. I could see him breaking it all the way down, getting rid of everybody, or, going out and trying to sign a bunch of free agents and compete. I don't know. They feel like one of those teams you don't want to be. They're like right in the middle, and I don't feel good about either way right now with them.
And the Broncos traded up to get Marvin Mims too. I'm not sure why they didn't use him or why he didn't pan out or what they saw in him that didn't pan out on the field. But
I like Mims a ton. I don't understand why they just refused to use him the second half of the year.
Right. Brandon, Browns.
Sean Payton is known to wait on his rookies for the most part, but I think it's ridiculous. I think he's a great player.
Yeah, especially when Jeudy was out for a little bit this year. I don't understand why he couldn't step up, so agreed. Brandon, Browns. So this guy named Deshaun Watson is coming back next season. Or is he? If you're the Browns, what do you do? Like you got fabulous Joe Flacco in here right now, who's elite, throwing the ball like crazy. I mean, you can't keep Joe Flacco, right? You got too much money tied up in Deshaun Watson, and you have to play him. Hopefully he'll be healthy back then. It'll actually look good.
I mean, he hasn't looked. I mean, they traded away their first-round pick, so they've got nothing there to do in the draft. $64 million in cap hit with Watson, so I think they're pretty much stuck with him. But he just hasn't looked good, for the past couple of years. So I don't know if it's health-based or just him in general. But I think the best case scenario is if they can bring back Flacco on like a team-friendly deal, and keep him under center. Because, I mean, he was obviously the best option under center for them over the past couple of years. So if that's a way they could work it out, I think that would be a smart way to go.
I would just think that there would be, as soon as things didn't work out, would the whole crowd would be like, bring in Flacco, like a big quarterback controversy thing going on there. I almost think you can't do that just because you have to see what Watson has and let it play out. It seems like it's just trouble brewing if you bring both of them back. But I get it. JT, Buccaneers. When do they re-sign Baker to touchdown maker?
Yeah, this is interesting to see what they do. I mean, they made the playoffs. If he wins the first round game against the Eagles, who are just absolutely imploding, how do they not re-sign him? I know they probably don't love him. They're probably happy with what they got out of him this year. But what kind of contract are they going to give him? Is it a Geno deal? Is it a little less than a Geno deal? Would Baker take something more reasonable just because he's like, as long as I can start and I know I'm on a team? Because again, if he doesn't get the starting job for the Bucs, is there going to be another team really leaping at the fact to sign him to be their starter? I don't know. It's like he almost has to come back to the Bucs, and it just depends on price and money and what they can do. And if a QB doesn't fall to him in the draft, but if he ends up beating the Eagles in the first round, I don't know how you don't resign him somehow.
I don't know how you don't resign him either. And I think he will take a team-friendly deal because he feels like he found a home, that kind of thing. He's been kind of like, how do you call it, like disgraced or like
yeah, I mean he's finally got a chance. I think if I'm him, I don't push too much if I'm his agents. I want a decent deal, I want a fair deal, but I want to stay here and get a chance to start.
Absolutely. Wendy Early. What's up, Brandon? That's
Hey,
Justin
Wendy.
and my boy John. Don't want to let you guys feel left out. Don't worry. We know where your heart's at. We know you love us all. We're good. We love you too. So let's
Under the
JT,
Cardinals.
Chargers. Oh, Cardinals.
Nope,
That's right.
we're on the Cardinals.
So Hollywood Brown is out and Marvin Harrison Jr. is in, right?
Harrison to the Cardinals at number 4 overall, I think is probably the likely selection. That's where most people have him mocked out. So, I mean, they're moving forward with Kyler Murray. And I do think they probably land Harrison unless the Bears, like we talked about, possibly move down slightly, stick with Fields and get him at 3 or 2 or 3. But so even if they get him, I think there's a slight chance they might franchise Hollywood and then have Brown, Harrison, Michael Wilson as an interesting 3 wide receiver set. They still have Rondell Moore if Hollywood moves on, but I do think that's the pick for them, and it is just a question mark for me if they can actually possibly franchise Hollywood Brown, but I don't know that they want to do that.
Yeah, you're looking at if Caleb Williams is gone, Drake May is gone, Jay Daniels is gone. At that point in time, you're taking receiver and offensive lineman. So I would think that the Cardinals at that point in time would probably say if they could franchise one player and sign the other one and do a cheap rookie deal. I wouldn't say cheap as number 4 pick in the draft, but it's still cheaper than like a high profile second contract kind of wide receiver that's on fire. But I mean, that would be the way to go, I guess. Just stack the receiving core, maybe get another offensive lineman or 2 in free agency or later in the draft. But I don't know how you could pass up on Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 4 when he's probably the best available option at that point in time when you're drafting. So yeah, I get it. JT Chargers. Do you replace the running back position or the wide receiver position earlier in the draft because you need both of them right now?
Well, the two guys I really would love to see on the Chargers, I would love to see Malik Neighbors from LSU or Brock Bowers from Georgia. I think both of those guys would be phenomenal on the Chargers. Herbert needs some more weapons. I think they go running back, but this draft, if you look at any of the Devy drafts, any of the mocks and stuff, running backs are going to fall in this draft. You're going to get running backs later. I think they go running back. I just don't think they do it early. I think this team needs another superstar weapon to go with Keenan Allen. I'm all over Neighbors after the Quentin Johnson kind of mess up last year. If you don't get Neighbors, I love Bowers. I just think Bowers is more than just a tight end. I think he's a difference maker anywhere you put him on the field. I like both those guys at Chargers. I would love to see them get a stud offensive weapon for Herbert.
I want Neighbors to go to the Bears, man. Like, I want that. That's you want them to trade back, get off
if
the lineman earlier.
If the Bears don't get Marvin Harrison Jr., that would be my next pick for the Bears. Would be Neighbors. The only reason I like Marvin because I feel like he is a different type of player than DJ Moore. I actually feel like Malik Neighbors is a lot like DJ Moore. I feel like not that's too bad. I mean, I wouldn't hate to have two DJ Moores on the same team, but I feel like they're more similar type of players. But Neighbors is phenomenal too. The Bears got to get another weapon on the outside to go with DJ Moore.
Yes. Brandon, Chiefs. When the Chiefs draft Tony Franklin, how happy is Patrick Mahomes going to be?
I think he'd be pretty ecstatic, but I mean, there's a lot of factors here, right? So like Kelsey could potentially retire. They've got MVS at a $12 million cut. Justin Watson could also be a cut, which is no big loss. He's just kind of a waste of space. But right now they're stuck with Rashee Rice, who's really developed into a much better player than I thought he was as a prospect. They've got Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore, but I do think another possibility, Keenan Coleman out of Florida State, big physical X receiver with good speed could be a good fit there as well. But, Troy Franklin with that 4.3 speed, it would be a lot of fun with Mahomes. So I like what you're talking about there.
Yes. What about, let's just say what about like David Sanders or something like that for like as a replacement, long-term replacement for Kelsey kind of thing? Like, how would you? I don't want to get too far in rookies if you haven't done a lot of rookie research yet, but like at some point in time, if we're already talking about Kelsey retirement and that's like the offense funnels through the wide receiver position, you got to do something like that. You have to like pick, start planning toward the future. And I don't think what they have right now in the backup tight ends is they're not Kelsey, they're not Travis Kelsey. No, nobody on the team is. So you have to go over somebody special, I guess. But there's a million options the Chiefs have. With it's a first round pick. There's a lot of good players this year. A lot of decent offensive linemen in the first round of this year's draft. A lot of good defensive players. A couple safeties, a couple cornerbacks. So they'll have some options. But I think they need to worry about replacing tight end before they worry about receiver. But Troy Franklin is somebody that I kind of want as a deep threat like replacement. So there's a lot of places they can turn to.
The tight end position, there were a lot of hits this year in the rookie class, but it's usually not been one that is going to turn your team around in year one. So I don't see them going early for a tight end, but I could be wrong.
I think there's some solid tight ends out there in this draft. Some guys I really like, but I can't see Kansas City going tight end before third, fourth round unless somebody just absolutely falls to them in the second. I just don't see him going that high with a guy unless they're just in love with him. But I do like Sanders. I think he would be a really good fit for them. I think Bell from Florida State is a really interesting guy. He's not a pure tight end. He's a little bit more of an athlete that you kind of use everywhere, which Andy Reid's done a good job with those guys in the past. So maybe he's a guy they maybe look at in the third round or so. But there's some solid tight ends out there. But I think people are going to have to temper expectations because the rookie tight ends were so good this year. I think that people are going to expect that, and that we've seen that just doesn't happen. It's usually a second or third year till guys really break out, and this just happened to be a year where not everybody, but a lot of the guys were really good right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, there's Tyler Conklin's and Mike Gesicki's and stuff out there this year that'll be free agents and available. So who knows, man? Who knows what they're going to do? But JT, Colts, do they keep Michael Pittman around?
100%. They have to keep Michael Pittman around. No doubt about it. They got to get a deal done. I don't see how there's any way they let Michael Pittman go. If you look at his stats, the way he's played the last couple of years with just very average to below average quarterback play, if they can actually get good quarterback play, solid play, I mean, I think Pittman's one of the most underrated receivers in the league. Colts got to keep him.
Yeah, I think he wants to be there too. That's I think he likes being a Colt. So, Brandon, Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? Just make Jalen Tolbert work instead of ruining my Jalen Tolbert hopes and dreams. Like, you don't need to draft another wide receiver, right? They already have plenty of start somewhere else on the team in this draft. Don't let Tolbert bloom into this offense, right? I mean, is that the way to think?
Yeah, I don't think they need to draft another wide receiver. CeeDee Lamb, they finally made the right decision to feed him, and it's proved to be a good one. Brandon Cooks, I think he's back for another season. He came on later. Then we just have that Tolbert, Michael Gallup fighting for scraps kind of thing. So, but I do think Tolbert has room to grow in this offense. I also think they need to address the running back position early on in that draft. Tony Pollard was obviously not the issue, but they like to run the ball with a big back, and I think they're going to be looking for one of the veteran backs to come in and maybe help that offense a little bit.
Yeah, I just picked up Jalen Tolbert and David Bell in 4 or 5 leagues this week because people dropped them later in the season. And I think those guys, they were early second-round draft picks. And I'm not sure David Bell is ever going to turn in anything. But I like having guys that I thought were really, really talented coming out that people dropped. You hear about this shit every year. Guys dropping their early second-round picks or late first-round picks or, somewhere in the third-round picks that end up blooming. So I'm picking up those Tolberts and the Bells and shit all over the place, man, because if they're out there, man, you fill up your IR. Make sure you fill up your entire IR with the guys in the offseason.
Absolutely.
Do the every way you can to get as many people on your roster in the offseason. You don't got to worry about shit until the rookie draft now. So,
yeah, John, I'm with you on that. I went the last couple of weeks of the season where I had teams that were kind of out of it, and I went anywhere I saw Tolbert on the waiver wire. I picked him up and stashed him. I stashed him anywhere I could get him.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. We'll go Dolphins. JT. Why do these Dolphins implode as soon as they fall behind every week, man?
It's wild how good some teams are when they are playing ahead. I mean, the Dolphins might be the best team in the league when they're winning. When they're winning, it's like they play loose. Like Mike McDaniel just calls every play right play. Like they run, they can throw, they mix it up. It's like this team is a totally different team. And then they get behind. It's just like they just get rattled. I don't know if it's the players, it's the coaches, they change their scheme when they're down, but it's crazy when this team is up. They look like a completely different team when they're playing 1 or 2 scores ahead than when they're 1 or 2 scores behind. It's super perplexing to me. I don't understand it at all, but it's pretty eye-popping when you watch the games how different it is.
Brian kind of threw some shade on my Tua, tried to throw some shade on my Dolphins, but I don't know. Joke's on him. I don't like Tua, so it's. But yeah, he mentioned the same thing. Like this is what happens when they come out and they win 72-0 versus the Broncos, or they beat other teams 56-3, and it's like, and then they fall behind by a touchdown and everything. The whole thing implodes. So yeah, I don't get it. Brandon, Eagles. Do you really think the Eagles would reach and grab Jackson Powers-Johnson late in the first round? Of how much they rely on the center position to lead this offensive line, because he's a center from Oregon, probably the best center, and I think the best center coming out of the draft. Do you think they'd reach for a center in the first round of the NFL draft? Later, it's going to be a late first round anyway, but to get a quality center that maybe replace Jason Kelce this year, or possibly learn a year and then go behind him, is that their biggest need? Is make sure the tush push works every week?
They have a lot of issues. I mean, they need to think about the running back position. DeAndre Swift could likely, re-sign with him, but he's a free agent. They definitely have some defensive needs. But I do think they'll go with depth at that O-line. I think they might just take the best available tackle, eventually take over for Lane Johnson. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think they're going to address the offensive line and build for the future. So Jackson Powers Johnson is a possibility there. I think probably a big offensive tackle might be the direction they might go, though.
JT, Falcons. What does a good offensive-minded coach do for a team with a shitty quarterback like this?
Well, if you can figure out how to use your shitty quarterback, you're a really good offensive coach. So that's the first thing. They got to do something at QB. I mean, you look at this team. I mean, halfway through the year, the Falcons were on my do not bet list. Either way, don't take them and don't bet against them, because whatever you're going to do, they're going to screw you, because that's just who they were this year. They won games you're like, didn't think they had a shot at. Every game you're like, oh, Falcons are putting it together. Nope, they get wiped off the map by somebody. It's that team is super frustrating. They got to find an offensive coordinator that can use their guys, and they got to find a QB. I mean, they got to find a QB. So that's going to be, I think, one of the bigger stories in the offseason is what they're doing. Whether, like Brandon said earlier, they make a trade for Justin Fields, whether they try to get somebody in the draft, whether they try to go do something crazy and get like a Russell Wilson, but they got to do something at quarterback, because this team is going nowhere in a bad division until they get a QB.
I mean, that's pretty much the Twitter echo chamber, is to bring Justin Fields to Atlanta. But I mean, if Justin Fields goes to Atlanta, is he going to be that much better as a quarterback, or is he going to be still a kind of a shitty quarterback on a better team? Like, I don't get the whole.
And it comes down to the offensive coordinator, who they get to work with him. Can he figure out how to use them correctly? I mean, if you watch the last Bears game, Fields is getting crushed in the pocket. They got everybody was coming right up the middle. They weren't rolling him out at all. That you gotta be able to adjust, and you got to be able to use his skill set. They've got players. I mean, you'd love to see him with Bijan, see what him and Bijan could do together if they used them correctly. But again, that's, we talk about it all the time. That's the teams that are middle of the road or bad is because they have bad quarterbacks and they can't get a good offensive coordinator. So, I mean, that's like half the league. So it's just, who can figure it out first, I think is makes the difference.
Yeah. And then you look at PFF and it says the Bears have a better offensive line than the Falcons do. And it's like, what happens if you go somewhere with a worse offensive line? Like, then what happens? Like, so whatever. I don't know. It's a tough one. Brandon, 49ers. Is George Kittle pretty much done as a 49er with a $20 million incoming cap hit? Is he going to be a Bear?
Yeah, I mean, he's the third highest tight end in the NFL right now. He's making $15 this year. And then he's got that. It is a $75 million extension in 2024. I think he's set to make almost $22 million. So I think if the Niners are looking at their books, it's an easy place, to cut or trade him. But I don't think it happens. Like, I think this team and this organization loves him. He's a top tier blocker, legit threat downfield to catch the ball in the end zone. I just think he's such a good fit for this organization. I don't think they move on.
He blocks on the line in the box. He blocks linebackers downfield. He blocks safeties. He blocks cornerbacks. Every play, he's somewhere blocking somebody when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. And I don't think you can lose a player like that and be the same team anymore. And on top of that, you see the other players blocking, learning from him blocking, and seeing where to block because of it. I mean, he is a pivotal point of that offense, that the way that whole thing works. And it would not work the same without him on a team. But it would be nice to see him in a Bears uniform, since he is a Bears fan. So I'll keep my fingers crossed on that, but I think he's going to stay in San Fran. I believe the same as you.
Yeah.
JT, Giants, is Darren Waller coming back next year?
I think we have to realize that Darren Waller is probably done. I'm sorry, but the guy, he can't stay healthy. He just can't stay healthy. I like him when he's in there. These guys obviously got a ton of talent, but man, we're going on 3 years straight now, almost 4 years where he's been injured almost half or more of the season, and he's just getting up there in age. I thought, everybody, like a lot of people thought maybe this could be a breakout with a new chance with the Giants, and it just didn't work out. I'm staying away from Waller in fantasy. Does he come back? Probably, but I don't want him in any league.
I don't understand how these guys who have these hamstring issues don't, like, in the offseason just get completely stretched out, do some kind of crazy yoga, get like super hydrated, take the right medicines and stuff. How is hamstrings always a problem for some people when, and it's like, that's a problem. How is it like an Achilles heel, like the Achilles hamstring for these guys, or are they just not doing the right workouts? Or
I think some people just have bad hamstrings. Some people have loose hamstrings. Some people have tight hamstrings. And I think the more you injure something like that, it just comes up more often. It's just easier to hurt the next time and the next time. And the older these guys get, I think it's the easier it is to hurt them.
Brandon, Jaguars. The Jaguars keep Trevor Lawrence. They are using and abusing him like a rented mule right now. It seems like they just don't give a shit about his future. Like, I mean, obviously he's a franchise quarterback, and it's a question like, oh, is he the best thing ever? Is he really generational? But like, what's the plan here? Like, why would you beat him up like that when you're like, now that I guess there was a chance to get in the playoffs. You got to put him out there as much as you possibly can. But when you guys he can't even move his arm halfway, and his ribs are hurt, and his ankle and everything else is beat up. Like, at some point in time, when do you think about the future and just say, hey, do they even care? Do you think they envision him as the quarterback of the future for the next 10 years in Jacksonville?
Yeah, I don't think there's any way they're going to move on. He did not have the third-year breakout that many of us expected. But I still see him as a franchise quarterback for them. They're just going to have to figure out some of these other pieces, if they can bring back Calvin Ridley, which I think they probably will. I think that makes the Falcons a little bit happier. I think they get a second-round pick instead of a third if that happens. But yeah, they need to continue to maybe be a little smarter with the way they play him, and then surround him with some talent. So, but yeah, I don't understand why they did not sit him and rest him and just give up on the season, but they didn't.
It is what it is. JT Jets. Tyler Conklin has been fine, but saving $5 million and drafting Brock Bowers seems to be the play here, right?
I mean, like I told you, I'm on record. I love Bowers. I think Bowers is freaking phenomenal. I think he could be a game changer, especially in the NFL and the right coaching staff that knows how to move tight ends around and use them. 10 is where the Jets are. That seems to be kind of where people are looking at Bowers. Right. I've heard some talk about, would Bowers even get to 15 to the Colts? I don't know if he would get that far. Kind of would depend. I mean, you've got Vikings, you've got Broncos with Dolchich and Hawkinson right in front of them. Raiders just took Mayer last year. Saints would be a team at 14. How they love tight ends, that they would maybe go in there. But I could definitely see Bowers at 10 to the Jets for sure.
If he went to the Colts, I would just start pissing my pants because they use 18 tight ends every goddamn week, and it makes
I know they would have to. What they didn't have having to do is they'd have to do exactly what they used to do with Dallas Clark, and where he's a little more of a slot guy, second tight end, where he's kind of like your second, third wide receiver more, and then you still use like a guy like Jelani Woods on the line as more of a blocker, and you're playing, two tight ends a little more often, which if that happened, I could totally see him do that. But yes, the Colts have like 7 tight ends on the roster right now. They've drafted one every year for like 5 straight years. So it's like, I don't know what they're doing there, but yeah, they've got a million tight ends. They got to figure out that room. I think a couple of those guys are gone next year for various reasons. So I think it will thin itself out a little bit.
They've had 20 tight ends on the roster since 1983. So I don't understand. Like, it's not anything new. It's like what they
tight
do.
Ends.
I don't get it, man. It just Next question. Brandon, I don't know how many shares of Jameson Williams you have, but is he going to be a thing, or is he just, if you had him on our team, or is he a sell right now, or just an avoid altogether, or a buy low for you?
I think he's a hold for me. I mean, his value has taken a dip since he was drafted in the first round, in dynasty leagues. But there's a lot of question marks about him and his future. But Josh Reynolds, Donovan Peoples-Jones are both free agents, so that helps his case. He's obviously got a lot of speed, and I think he took some steps forward the past couple of weeks. I I don't think, I mean, maybe there's some people out there that just like really love the guy and would give you a good deal for him, and I would trade him away. But for now, he's pretty much a hold for me.
You said the magic word, Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's my hold for every league, so that's my guy. One day that guy's going to break out. I'm just telling you. Hear me now, believe me later. But he will be a breakout candidate somewhere at some point in time, and he'll be on my team when it happens. So, JT, Packers. Is the Packers' biggest need going to be running back going forward, or something else?
I don't know if it's their biggest need, but they're definitely gonna need to get some running back. The AJ Dillon is he's okay. How much does Aaron Jones have left? I could see them sneakily trying to get a guy like Jordan Brooks from Texas or Travion Henderson if he is yet to declare from Ohio State, but it kind of everything's pointing like he's going to. Seeing if they could sneak a guy like him in the second round, I could totally see them doing something like that. They have young wide receivers. I could see them stacking more wide receivers with this group for sure. With this class coming in, I like Reed a ton. Wicks was, I have to say, way better than I ever thought he was going to be for the Packers this last year. And then, as if Watson could ever stay healthy. But I think the Packers actually can go a lot of directions. I mean, their defense is pretty solid all around. They got a few holes to fill, but I can see him going running back somewhere. I just don't know if the Packers are going to consider running back their biggest need.
What the hell were they doing all these years when Aaron Rodgers was on a team and they were drafting, MVS and I don't forget the other guy in the 5th round pick that was 6'4", 180 pounds. Why weren't they drafting all the receivers when Aaron Rodgers was on a team? Now they got a whole shitload of young, talented studs on this team, and it's. I mean, Jordan Love looks pretty good. Don't get me wrong. It pains me to know that they're going to go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love if he pans out. It actually hurts my feelings that that's going to be a thing. But at the same time, where was all these receivers at when Aaron Rodgers was on the team? Why was it just Devontae Adams?
They're like, Rodgers is good enough to make all the play. We'll get every other position. Rodgers will make these guys good. That's what they were thinking.
Let's draft defense and nothing, and let Aaron Rodgers just do it with one guy. And
I mean, I kind of liked it. I like seeing Aaron Rodgers suffer.
Yes, it was nice. Brandon, Panthers. This is probably Adam Thielen's final game as a Panther, right?
I'm not so sure about that. He has a $10 million contract. I think he stays with a nice veteran presence. Hopefully Jonathan Mingo takes the next step forward as a second-year guy. But they do need to bring some help in. They do not have a first-round pick. They have 39 million in cap space. DJ Chark and Visca are both gone in free agency, so I don't know. I think he'll stick around. I don't think he's going to be a league changer. He was really good for them the first part of the season, but I think he just stays as a veteran presence, and hopefully they can fill some gaps.
I mean, Mingo's yards per route run are not that great, but I mean, he is sometimes the ball's not even close to him. If you watch any of those games, it's like, dude, come on, man, give the guy a chance. I feel like it's that Calvin, that Jaguars back in the day when Allen Robinson was like pissed off on the sidelines because the ball was 10 yards out of bounds and he's running for routes. I just feel bad because I think Mingo is going to be a thing, but it's just not working out because of quarterback play.
Yeah, I mean, they've got that offensive line's horrible. Mingo missed, a lot of the preseason with injury and stuff like that. So I think he's got room to improve. I just don't think he's there yet.
Yeah, JT, Patriots. So give me the blueprint for rebuilding a dynasty in New England because they're at rock bottom right now and they got to start rebuilding somewhere.
Yeah, so I think they just got to decide what makes sense at number 3 with them. The number 3 pick, are they going to take a QB? They go with a guy like Drake May. I could totally see him making that move and just starting all over a QB. I like that move. They decided to do that. The other move I could see them doing is trading out of 3 and just trying to acquire as many picks as possible. This defense is actually pretty good. They had a lot of injuries this year. Gonzalez, the rookie from Oregon last year, the cornerback, was phenomenal before he had a season-ending injury. They've got some good pieces on defense. They just got to figure out what the heck they're doing on offense, and they got to actually get some offensive weapons. I mean, talk about a team that can't figure out wide receiver. They just can't get any wide receivers. Juju, my guy, hurt all year. What has he got left? Hopefully he can get healthy in the offseason, but he was having injury problems all year. Pop Douglas was a nice little surprise at wide receiver. I still can't believe they can't get Gesicki and Hunter Henry involved whatsoever, it seems like. I mean, Hunter Henry ever so often has a big game and then disappears for 3 games. That makes no sense to me. So I think the big thing for them is they got to figure out, are we going QB at 3 because they never get the draft this high, or is this an opportunity where somebody else really loves one of these QBs and they get as many picks as they possibly can trading back, and they just add in everything around, stick with Mac Jones for another year, or go out, maybe they go out and get a veteran and just kind of and see from there. But I think that's the big decision. What do you do at 3, QB or trade down?
There's a handful of quarterbacks that are going to be there a little bit later that New England could possibly trade up for, or B, that it might fall right in New England's lap on their second pick. But I think trading out is probably when you have a need across the board on the offensive side of the ball, then yeah, absolutely. I think you got to do that. Brandon, Raiders, will the Jets be able to make a Rodgers-Adams reunion possible?
Well, there's all that speculation we're seeing on social media right now with Garrett Wilson changing his jersey number 5, opening up the door for Adams to keep his number 17. But there's a lot, beyond that. I think, they already have Garrett Wilson, right? So they would have to take on Adams' $17 million guaranteed contract with another $23 million in probate bonuses over the next 3 years. They have Alan Lazard with a $12 million guarantee.
Yeah.
And so it's a fun thing to talk about in the offseason. I just don't know how they can make those numbers work.
You have to lose some defensive players, unfortunately, is what's going to happen there. That's you're going to have to weaken the team to make the team better. And I'm not sure that makes the team better necessarily by doing it, but they got to make some tough decisions if that's what's going to happen for sure.
Right.
JT, Rams, what's the future of Cooper Kupp in LA?
That's a good question. I mean, I like Cooper. I think he wants to stay there. I would assume he stays there as long as Matt Stafford stays there. But I guess that, I haven't looked up the details on his contract. Is he due up this year, or has he got another year left on his deal? I can't remember on him.
I think it was mostly the first year was this year was mostly guaranteed, but next year is mostly cuttable kind of thing like that. Okay. So they can. Yeah.
And I can see, if Stafford's there, I think they keep him. They're obviously good friends. We've seen what he can do. If he doesn't come out and ask for some, crazy, insane contract after the injuries, I think they keep him. But yeah, in this day and age of the NFL, anybody could get cut at any time if the team thinks they can save money. But I would assume he stays in LA, especially if the Rams can upset the Lions and make any kind of run. We all know how that affects people. You win a game or two in the playoffs, and it almost changes everybody's mind. So I think if they could win a game or two in the playoffs, I think people would say, "Hey, you got to keep Cooper because you got Cooper and Nakua." And that's just a dynamic duo. So I think they keep him unless the numbers just can't work.
I'll have to look over the cap on that. I for some reason my computer's acting up right now. But Brandon, Ravens. Do the Ravens bring in a quality free agent running back like Barkley or Jacobs, or just pump in cheap running backs because nobody can stay healthy on this team anyway?
J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are both free agents. So they really need a power back. Rookie Keaton Mitchell is also coming off a major injury. They only have $13 million in salary cap, so they need to be creative here. So I could see a scenario where they bring back Gus Bus, sort of on the cheap, and then there's always a possibility they sign one of these veterans. But I think a lot of those guys, the major guys like a Barkley or a Jacobs, want a long-term deal, and I don't know how they can make that work with the salary cap right now.
Bring in big fat Braylon Allen in there to rust some shit up in there. That's what I'm talking about, man. That's a good late third round pick for him.
If they got a big guy like Braylon Allen with the way Gus was scoring touchdowns this year, geez, they could get somebody with 15, 20 TDs pretty easy.
Well, he's 6'2", 240, and he ran. I'm watching his film. It's pretty nice, man. He's outrunning cornerbacks and shit.
I've seen him play in person a couple times. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good. And they say he runs like a 4.9 40 or 4.8 40. There's no way I've seen him on the field running like cornerbacks and shit. So
I think he's faster than that. If I had to guess, I'd say he's like low 4.6s.
Yeah, I was about to say 4.55.
I don't think, but again, he's a big guy. Once he gets moving,
yes,
it's pretty hard to bring him down when he gets up to full speed.
Yeah, like Derrick Henry kind of shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brandon, Ravens. The Ravens. Oh, jeez, I just did that one. JT Saints. You are in a room with Mickey Lewis. Tell him what needs to be done to stop mortgaging the future and start an actual rebuild.
Well, I guess the first thing would be stop mortgaging the future. What are you doing? He can't help himself. It just does it every year. Again, this division's wide open. It's just who's going to make the right moves to kind of move things, forward. Man, I like Derek Carr as a person. I like him as a guy. I don't know if he was the answer for the Saints. He was very okay this year. He's one of those, you look at the stats, and the stats aren't like terrible by any means, but when you watch games, it just feel like he did not make plays when they needed him. Like a lot of times they got in the red zone, they couldn't score. And then the only time they did score is when they pulled him and put Tyson Hill in. They've got to figure out what they're doing, kind of what direction they're going in. The one thing I do like is A.T. Perry. I was a big fan of him coming out. They finally got him involved a little bit at the end of the year. Him and Olave are good. They've got to figure out, Kamara's situation. Are they sticking with Carr? How long are they sticking with Carr? Because, again, they had a pretty solid defense before injuries most of the year. So I don't think that team's terribly far away from competing just because that division is so up in the air.
Yeah. The garbage guy's out in front of my house right now destroying my garbage can, so I had to mute myself for a minute. But,
Brian on here, he said Derrick Henry to the Ravens. That Derrick Henry could he could load up some touchdowns being on a Ravens team. That's for sure. That could be some crazy fantasy stats if that somehow happened.
The best sad part about it is it should have happened last year. He should have been a Raven this year. He shouldn't have waited and wasted another year of his career, on this Titans team that wasn't going anywhere. Like, it should have been a Raven this year. Could imagine how the team would have been this year already as good as they are with Derrick Henry.
What if he goes to Dallas? Derrick Henry to Dallas?
Yeah, I can see that too.
Possibly. Yeah, because he stays healthy for the most part, and that's availability is the best ability. So, Brandon, Seahawks cutting Tyler Lockett will hurt a lot of Seahawks fans' hearts, but it's going to help bring in fresh young talent like offensive linemen. And what else do they need? What else does this team really need? On offense, they look really good on paper.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure that they'll move on from Lockett personally, but it could happen. I think the bigger question is if they retain Geno Smith, they can save $23 million by releasing him. But then there's a big question of like, who are they going to replace him with, and not having a lot of money to spend. Could it be someone like they give Drew Lock another chance, which I don't think is a good decision. Jacoby Brissett looked pretty good, for a minute. Like, could they bring him in, as a Geno copycat kind of player? But I do think they'll probably bring back Smith. I just don't know who else they have, what other options they have. So that's the bigger question for me, what they're doing at quarterback.
Yeah, I think me and JT are both on the Drew Lock train. Hopefully, he goes in there and throws some YOLO balls and stuff once in a while, but he just looks like a better quarterback than Geno Smith most of the time.
I just can't believe with all the terrible QBs in the league this last year, guys that played that Drew Lock can't get a shot. He can't get a shot with somebody, man. It's the same thing with, we talked about with James Winston. I just understand with all these other guys, how are these guys not getting one shot somewhere with all these bad QBs? Russ back to Seahawks for a little less. That would actually be hilarious if Russ went back to the Seahawks. Everything went that way after they got all the picks, and they're like, Pete Carroll, genius. We'll trade him for this stuff. Russ, you just piss everybody off, make everyone hate you. We'll grab you. We'll bring you right back. That actually would be hysterical.
It's like a Trojan horse move from Pete Carroll kind of shit.
Pete Carroll pulling all kinds of crazy moves out.
Oh, it's fucking lootly. Let's see. JT Steelers. Mike Tomlin is barely going over 500. Is that a great feat anymore? Or is it time to move on?
I tell you what, I know people are like, well, you're just barely over 500. You just done that. Man, there's a whole lot of teams that would love to be 500 every year. A whole lot of teams. I know Steelers fans get, they get a little greedy. They're like, oh, we should be better. And there's years that they should have been better with the talent. I've watched every one of these Steelers games this year multiple times. This team had a million injuries. Did they absolutely lay an egg against Arizona and the Patriots? Yes, they did. That was just awful. Coaching, playing, everything. I knew at least one of those games was going to happen. I said at the beginning of the year, Steelers lose to a bottom 3 team every season. It never fails. But then they always end up winning some games they shouldn't. They're 10-7, made the playoffs. They're on their 3rd string quarterback. They're on their 6th string inside linebacker, their 5th string safety. I mean, this team's had a ton of injuries. Have they been disappointing at times this year? Yes, but I think Tomlin, I don't think you can move on from him, man. I just see all these other teams with just coaching carousel every 2 years, every 3 years, and they think somehow that's going to make them better. Has they underperformed at times? Could he have been better? Yes, but I still think Tomlin is a top 5 coach in the NFL. Regardless, I know teams get frustrated with him, but I just don't think you can get rid of him if you're the Steelers. I think you got to stick with him.
I like Tomlin. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a good dude. I think he's a good person to have running your organization, to keep guys in check and stuff. But yeah, I think at some point in time when you're not in a position to win the big game, ever, you're just there, kind of lingering around, possibly making the playoffs every year. You're like, oh, come on, man, we need something better. But I get it. I understand what you're saying. Brandon, Texans. Houston is overachieving right now, and it's awesome. What gets them over the hump to be a contender?
Well, the $70 million in cap space doesn't hurt. So they've got a lot of room to spend. I can see them both upgrading their O-line, D-line, and free agency in the draft. They obviously have Stroud, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell as the building blocks. But they'll need, to do something at tight end. Dalton Schultz is a free agent, so I don't know what they'll do with him. They might, maybe they'll re-sign him. Noah Brown is also a free agent. I think Robert Woods is probably a cut candidate for them. But the question mark for me is what they might do with the running back position. And this is where I could see them actually grabbing one of these guys that we've been talking about. I think Josh Jacobs could be a good fit here. But I think bringing in a stud veteran running back is really what they could spend some money on.
That's the move. Yes. We talked about earlier, JT. Derrick Henry's only making $5 million a year. Why wouldn't you just bring him back?
I mean, if you're Titans, I would. But again, I think with the Vrabel firing, I think at this point they've said we got to go a whole new direction. It's time to break it down, rebuild it all up. And I just think that means Tannehill's gone. I think that means Henry's gone. I just think they're ready to kind of move on. They like what they saw at Tajay Spears last year. I think they're ready to hand it over to him. I just think the Titans are going to go in a whole new direction. Will
Levis leading the charge in a new direction or what?
I think they're going to go with Will Levis. Do I think that's the right move? My Levis hate is well known. I just don't love him. I love him as the Titans quarterback playing against the Colts every year, twice a year. I love that. But I think this Titans team could be on the verge of being in real trouble. I just think this team has got a ways to – I think they're going to drop a couple more notches before they're able to turn it back around. I really do.
Brandon, Vikings. Captain Kirk may not be ready for week 1, and the team is not that bad. What moves does Minnesota make to keep themselves from falling behind in a tough division early on and out of the playoff hunt?
I don't think that they do much change here. Kirk Cousins, I think they bring him back. And maybe whoever the backup is, whether it be Nick Mullins or someone else, I think that system is just a good fit for most quarterbacks to succeed. So I think until Kirk gets back, they can make that fill in. But, I do think we need to talk a little bit about how good Kirk Cousins' season was going to be, or it was before he got hurt. He was averaging almost 300 yards passing per game, on pace for, 38 touchdowns, maybe 40 touchdowns, almost 5,000 yards. He was on pace for a historic season for himself, the best season of his career for sure. So I think that they definitely, I think Kirk wants to be back. He's that kind of player. He doesn't want to be moving around a lot. So I think we see him back. it's just who will fill in. I don't think the team makes a lot of changes, but whoever it is just a stopgap.
JT, finish off here. Do the Commanders just keep Sam Howell as a backup or draft a quarterback and wash their hands of him so there's no quarterback controversy? What do you think they're doing here?
Yeah, this one, I've been thinking about this one because I love Howell. I'm a Howell guy. I know he had some ups and downs this year. He played great in some moments. I think he ended up leading the league in picks. If he wasn't first, he was second. He did have some struggles. I do think he's a guy that could really put it together eventually in the league. Now, if they go out and draft a quarterback, as we've seen, you need a good backup quarterback because how many guys are getting hurt? Now, the problem with that is I think that is going to cause some strife, of back and forth. Every time someone doesn't play well or has a bad game or makes a mistake, does that mean you're going to have people, clamoring for the other guy and then back and forth and back and forth and back and forth all year? If they end up going QB, I would love to see them trade him. I'd love to see him on another team with another shot to start for someone else. I hope he doesn't get buried because I really think the guy has some skills. Obviously, he needs to improve on a lot of things, but I just think that Sam Howell can be an NFL quarterback and a pretty decent one. So if they do decide, hey, we're going the QB route, I kind of hope they move him to somebody else where he can start. I hate to see him get stuck like a Drew Lock stuck behind a Geno Smith or somebody where it's just like, okay, he's, and he's not going to play and you're just kind of wasting away.
Yeah, I had him and Trevor Lawrence on like probably 5 teams this year. And I was like, come on, man, that's all I got. I went for broke.
I got Howell on a ton of teams. I got Howell on a ton of super flex teams.
Yeah. All right, real fast. We're going to go through some, just pick a team. Either one of you guys will go through the playoffs. And then we'll finish the show there. So NFL playoff predictions, AFC round 1 only. Brandon and then JT and then myself. Brandon, Texans or Browns at Browns?
Browns.
JT?
Are the Browns getting the home game there?
Yes.
Don't the Texans get the home game because they won the division?
Oh, they won the division. Yeah, I must have that. Okay, never mind.
I saw somebody else say that too, that the Browns had the home game. I'm like,
Cleveland's a 5.
Yeah, so I really want to take the Texans. I'm probably taking the points if I'm betting. I'm taking the Texan points, but man, it's just I hate to say it, but it feels like Flacco just has this Browns team playing in the right direction, and their defense is so tough. I feel like they end up winning this game.
I'm going to say this is a Joe Flacco meltdown game, and the Texans are going to win. So
I would love to see a 300-yard, 2-3 touchdown performance from Stroud, and the Texans win this game. I would love it.
Yeah, I think the Browns are probably a better team all around, but I think the Texans I think they'll win this game. Dolphins, who are struggling mightily, versus the Chiefs, who are also having their sputtering moments. JT, Dolphins or Chiefs?
Man, it's a tough one again. I'm leaning. I actually wanted the Steelers to play one of these teams because I thought the Steelers could beat either one of these teams, which is kind of crazy. But I think I got to take the Chiefs at home. I think Mahomes is going to get just enough. I think the Chiefs defense has been really solid. And again, I think if the Chiefs can get up early, even if it's not by a lot, if the Chiefs can be leading most of this game, I think the Chiefs pull it away. I think the only way the Dolphins get it done is if they somehow come out and get 2 quick scores, and then the Chiefs have to play from behind all game.
Brandon.
Yeah, I think Miami might pull this one out. I do think that they're going to come out guns blazing. I think they're going to be a little healthier now that they sat and rested some of their players. I don't know. Kansas City, both teams have been struggling, as you've said, but there's just something off with Kansas City right now, and I don't think Mahomes is going to get it this year.
Miami has been just decimated by the injury bug the last couple of weeks, so I don't know what's going to happen with them. I'm going Chiefs just because of the fact that I think the Dolphins are just a mess right now. And that's, as a Dolphins fan, I just, it's tough to say, but I think it's just the Chiefs are just going to make it happen. JT, your Steelers versus the Bills.
The Bills, I have to be honest, the Bills were the one team I didn't want to play. I didn't want Josh Allen in the playoffs. That's what I was most worried about. I think this spread has gotten huge. It's almost up to 10. I think it's like 9.5 or 10. I think the Steelers can stay in the game, but I think the Bills take this one. I'm leaning hard on Bills to be my AFC pick for the Super Bowl. So I think the Bills end up getting it done, and I think Josh Allen ends up having a really good playoffs to kind of, all the critics about all the turnovers he's had this year, I could see him going on a crazy good run in the playoffs. I'm thinking Bills.
Brandon?
Bills, I don't think the Steelers should have even made the playoffs, personally. Sorry, but
it's okay. Most people don't think they should either. I mean, I was pumped they made it, but were they one of the best teams? Probably not. But they everything just kind of worked out for them.
I think the Bills magic has been a nice run, and I think they're going to win this game, but I can't see them winning the Super Bowl as much as I want them to. I'm a Josh Allen truther now to the extreme of extremes, as much as I like Dan Marino back in the day. But I think the Bills roll the Steelers this week, and then at some point in time, I think their luck runs out. But that's it for the AFC games. NFC round 1, JT, Brandon, and myself again. Eagles at Buccaneers. JT.
I'm gonna go. I can't even believe I'm saying this. I'm taking the Bucs. I think the Bucs are gonna win this game. I think they're gonna figure out a way to do it. I think it's gonna be ugly. I think it's gonna be low scoring. The Eagles have just looked bad. Do we know quite what's Hurts' finger yet? What's going on there? The defense has not been great. I could see Mike Evans getting just enough big plays against this bad secondary of the Eagles to make something happen. I'm imagining an ugly game. I'm thinking something like 16-13 Bucs with a bunch of field goals.
Brandon?
Yeah, I don't know what is going on with the Eagles right now, but it has been ugly. Their defense has been bad all season long. So I do think Tampa Bay could pull it out, but I'm going to give it to Philly.
It's tough for me because the Buccaneers they can dump off the Rachaad White. The running game's actually working with Rachaad White now too, which is crazy. He couldn't do shit at the beginning of the season, and now he looks like an all-pro running back. His dump offs in the middle of the field are good. They're using Cade Otton pretty well. That Mike Evans is crazy. Chris Godwin has breakout games once in a while when nothing else is open. I'm gonna take a shot here and say the Buccaneers myself, which is I would have never thought that.
If you had asked me 4 weeks ago,
right,
the Eagles are going to get the Bucs in the playoffs, I'd have been like, I'm throwing everything on the Eagles. I mean, I would have hammered the Eagles.
Right.
But it's something's just not going right there. I just feel like the Bucs, and somehow Baker Mayfield gets it done to save his job and get a new contract for the Bucs next year.
If he wins this game, he's getting a new contract.
That's what I'm saying. I think if he wins this game, they got to give him a contract. And I just think he is going to go out there and ball out against the Eagles defense that I don't know why they're as bad as they have been, but they have not been good.
Brandon, Rams versus Lions, the game of the week.
Yeah, I think if there's any team out there that teams did not want to face in the first round, it's probably the Rams. And I'm going to give it to the Rams. I think they move on.
Without Sam Laporta, who possibly might not play, I mean, did the Lions even stand a chance here?
I think they stand a chance, but I don't think they pull it out.
JT?
Yeah, I'm on the Rams on this too, which I can't believe because I thought the Rams were going to be garbage this year when we talked about a preseason. But man, we've got Vincent Stafford. He's looked great. Puka's been amazing. Cup's been good. The defense has been way better than I thought they'd be. I mean, if you looked at them at paper at the beginning of the year, you're like, who even are half these guys? I can't believe what the Rams have done. I like it. I think Stafford in the homecoming gets the upset in Detroit.
I feel bad for the Lions fans waiting all this time for a playoff win, but I think it's going to be one and done.
It would just be poetic justice. They trade Stafford away, and then he comes back, and they finally get a home playoff game, and he's the guy that beats them. It just seems like it's been written in a movie script. It's what's going to happen. I think Stafford gets it done.
Stafford beating the Lions, and what were we talking about before? Russ going back to the Seahawks would be like the biggest crazy shit going on in football. Packers versus Cowboys. Now this game is it's in Dallas, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
because Lions won a division. Yeah. So the Cowboys are awesome at home. So what do you think? Brandon, start with you.
I'm never gonna pick the Packers. Next.
Good. JT.
Yeah, two teams I really don't like to ever take either one of these teams, but I think Cowboys at home. I think they got too much, and they've just been lights out at home. I did go to that stadium this year, first time ever for the Cotton Bowl. pretty awesome stadium, other than they have some issues of how you get to certain seats. But other than that, really freaking cool stadium, AT&T Stadium in Dallas. I'm taking Cowboys.
Was the Chick-fil-A open? Was that on Sunday, or what day was it on?
Well, the issue is, if you haven't been there, they have luxury boxes everywhere. They don't want you to walk through any of the luxury box areas. So you have to take elevators constantly up and down the stadium. If you're going from one end to the other end, you have to take all these elevators because they don't want you walking through the luxury box area. So you end up taking a ton of elevators to get your seats if you enter on one side as opposed to the other, and you have to actually walk around the stadium. That was my biggest complaint. But other than that, the stadium was pretty cool, and they've got a nice little bar set up right next to the Rangers Park there in Arlington. It was pretty cool area.
Most people complain about too many stairs. You complain about too many elevators?
Well, you have to go up the elevators, come back all down all the stairs, and then back up all the stairs to get to the elevators. It was a little bit of I'm guessing if you walk in the side that you are sitting on, you're probably totally fine. The problem is if you come in one end and your seats are on the other side, that's the issue.
I'm going Cowboys. They're just kind of lights out at home sometimes. And I like the Packers, but they're young, they're upcoming, but they're not at Cowboys level yet. So I'm going Dallas Cowboys. That was our playoff predictions for round one. Mighty McGlynn home leagues, everybody just kind of threw in the towel. There was not one trade in any of my 8 leagues. So nothing went down there. Don't feel bad that our league didn't do shit, but look up for any of these David Bells or, Jalen Tolberts or guys like that, or, guys floating around that you might have an inkling next year's dynasty team. Throw them on your roster right now. Get rid of guys that you have on there that you don't think are going to be your future. And take shots for other dudes. But JT, I'm going to see you in about 15 minutes on your show. We'll be back to back here today. So, but let everybody know where they can find you at and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you can find me on the X at JT Orange. Also, the host of the Stew with JT Brew on my YouTube channel. Also on the Dynasty Pros football channel. So you can check me out there. If you're into IDP, I write an IDP waiver wire article for Fantrax, obviously off for the season. And then I do IDP rankings for DLF. So if you're a DLF member and you are getting into IDP, jump on there. I'll update my rankings throughout the summer if you got drafts coming up. Brandon Lane, thanks for jumping on today, man. This was great having you on. It's nice seeing you in person at the expo and at all the other events we do. It's super nice seeing you again. We made it happen. His show's almost the same time as my show on Tuesday nights. Yeah. So we got a Tuesday afternoon show. I got you on. Nothing you can do to get out of this one. Sorry, buddy. I got you. I roped you in.
I appreciate you having me on. It's been a blast.
A little longer than usually, but that's we try to do an hour here. I was hoping 45 minutes. I wrote on a show sheet earlier, but hour and a half. But thanks for sticking around. I much appreciate it. Where can everybody find you at? What's going on?
Yeah, you can find me at Chubsburger on Twitter and IG. I'm going to be going to the Senior Bowl in a couple of weeks, so that's going to be fun. So I'm going to be doing some coverage from there. And then other than that, off season, my friend John Messenbrink and myself do some draft coverage as well. So we'll be doing some write-ups before the NFL draft. So that's kind of my off-season plan. Other than that, kind of refresh, get, rebound and take some time off a little bit as well.
Absolutely. John McGlynn 75 on X. You can find the show on Fantrax, which all of our hockey leagues, our baseball leagues, everything else that is on. Pretty much Fantrax does their one-stop shop for almost every sport, golf, auto racing, you name it, they're on there. You can find this commission evaluation show on my commission evaluation YouTube page, as well as also the podcast. Like, review, 5-star rating would be awesome from everybody out there that watches the show, enjoys it. Thank you very much. And we will see you next week. Thank you very much for watching the Commissioner Evaluation Show. Have a good day, everyone, and see you later.